Howdy, folks, and thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale, and joining me, as always, over here it looks like he's juking around over like Mike Tyson around the microphone, Mr. Kyle Filson.
How's it going out there, everybody?
Those are some good moves you got working around that mic.
Yeah, you like that? You like shadow boxing?
You're working that over real good.
Yeah, man, you got to move your head. You got to bob it around a little.
That's right.
Don't stand flat-footed.
You get caught.
That's right.
Folks, hope everybody's having a wonderful Monday. The weather's nice. Everything's going great. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We have some interesting things to discuss today. If you liked last week's episode, because Kyle and I did, we love Miss Linda Godfrey, and the book's great. Like we said before last week, everything's really interesting. And for the elitists they got the show on Thursday, they knew this was coming. We are going to have a couple of gentlemen that actually shared their tale in Linda's book, going to come on and actually tell their story to us. We didn't cover it, but it's a Dogman encounter, and it is a heck of a Dogman encounter.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's how Linda Godfrey really got her name out there, was the Dogman.
Yes.
The Beast of Bray Road. That's kind of the story that broke. I remember she said she was working for a small town paper or something, and she had seen on the senior editor's desk like an envelope that said werewolf sightings.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "What's that?" And the guy gave it to her and let her look through it. And apparently there had been some werewolf sightings, and then that led her into
The
here we are all
rest,
these years later. And
shall we say, is history.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was a really interesting thing. It was a great story. I mean, I appreciate the guys.
Creepy.
Yeah, so folks, I think you're really going to enjoy this. But today we have some really cool stories. Kyle was laying something on me. First of all, I don't know how to feel about this first story we were discussing off air. That's kind of strange.
It is kind of strange. There's a new story out, and it's about a Danish study that shows that blind people have considerably more nightmares than people with normal sight, and those who become blind later in life. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. It's like it's just, I don't know, it's like your mind knows that you don't have that one extra sense, so it starts panicking.
Right, and the story details a 41-year-old woman named Heidi Anderson, and she was born blind, and she's often plagued by nightmares, and her sleep is interrupted by fears of being hit by passing traffic,
Yikes.
falling on the ground, or being followed. Now, she says that the core of my nightmares is a feeling of complete helplessness. She is not the only blind person to experience these nightmares. That's what this study shows. In fact, it shows that in the Journal of Sleep Medicine, that an average of 25% of the dreams experienced by people born blind are nightmares, while nightmares account for only 6% of the dreams of people who have sight.
Well, funny thing is she has the exact same nightmares that I would be afraid of having. I don't want to be hit by traffic or fall down or be stalked by anybody.
I have nightmares about alien abduction, probing, being taken against my will.
Now you're lying. Now
Okay,
you're just
mostly
making
it's
things
like being audited by the IRS or something like that.
No, that is fascinating.
Right?
Though,
25% of their dreams are nightmares compared to 6% of just normal people. That's terrifying.
It's not like it's not bad enough that you've lost your vision. Now when you sleep, you're going to have to be all freaked out. That's horrible.
Well, the study confirms what they already had previously hypothesized, that people's nightmares are associated with the emotions they experience while being awake. So blind people apparently experience more threatening or more dangerous situations during the day than people with sight do.
Ooh, okay.
You know
I
what I'm
understand
saying?
that. Yeah.
That's what it's saying, is that's what's causing them to have the nightmares. It's because in everyday life, like say a big truck's coming up the road and you don't hear it come until it's there. And then so it scares you, where if you had sight, you would have seen it coming out of your peripheral vision, so it wasn't really startle you.
Yeah.
So that's what they think leads to it. Now, it says when they did this study at the Glostrup Hospital and Brain Lab at the University of Copenhagen, they did this study. Over a period of 4 weeks, the team of scientists from the university followed 11 people who were born blind.
Okay.
They followed 14 people who had become blind later in life. And then they followed 25 normal-sighted people. Now, they asked the participants to take notes of what they dreamt. Now, there are 4 stages from the waking state to being in deep sleep. We pass through all 4 stages 4 to 6 times each night. And each time it takes about
4
9
stages.
minutes. This is for everybody, yeah.
Sobriety, light buzz, no?
That's not what they're talking about. Now, it says that the first dream you usually have is within the first 5 to 10 minutes of your sleep. The next dream is slightly longer, and they gradually get even longer until the last dream of the night, which may last between 30 and 40 minutes. Now, the results from this test show that people who are born blind didn't have dreams with visual content, and 25% of their dreams were, in fact, nightmares. 2, people who lost their sight later in life may have visual content in their dreams, although the longer they have been blind, the fewer dreams they have with visual content. 7% of their dreams are nightmares. The dreams of normal-sighted people are based on images, and they have nightmares only about 6% of the time. So that's weird, because that's always been a question. Now, it's always been a joke. People always say, well, do blind people dream, and what do their dreams look like? Because they can't see anything.
Yeah.
Well, it's fact. They can have nightmares or dreams, but there's just no visual images.
It's them, they're having nightmares on the way that they perceive their self.
Exactly. And I think it's neat that people that had vision and then lost it later in life, based on when they lost their vision, if it's relatively new, they still dream a lot with images. But the longer ago it was, like say they lost their sight when they were 10 years old and now they're 40, almost none of their dreams have images anymore.
That's wild.
Isn't that weird?
What is that? When you can do like lucid dreaming, have you seen where they can teach you to do that? Like they even have the eye patches that have like the lights that flicker to let you know whenever you're in deep sleep so you can get in there and mess around. Have you seen all that?
Yeah.
Man, you know what? I may start messing around with that. So folks, I may lose my mind in 6-8 months or so, more so than normal, but I may have to give that a whirl because personally, I never remember a dream.
I hardly do.
Man, I never
Most of my
do.
dreams are dumb. I mean, there's nothing in it that it's like me dreaming of putting Sweet and Low in like a glass of tea.
Or driving. I have a lot of
And
them
then
like I'm just
something,
driving.
just something real mundane. I'm like, pfft.
Yeah.
Right? Well, back to the study, just before we get on to the next subject. It says that the trial subjects' nightmares are often related to threats they experience in everyday life, like we talked about. The one woman that they studied, she says her nightmares are often about being run over by a car or just getting into embarrassing social situations like spilling a cup of coffee. That's her nightmare, is being embarrassed because she knocked over a cup of coffee.
Well, and I'm sure if you were blind, that would be an embarrassment, you know.
Well, no doubt.
Man, that's crazy, though. I mean, that they actually have more nightmares than us.
I don't think nightmares is way below 6%. I mean, I remember having nightmares as a child and maybe a few times during my adolescence, but now as an adult, I don't think I've truly had a nightmare.
Oh, I
don't even remember how long.
I don't know how long.
15, 20 years?
Yeah.
I have dreams, but they're just stupid dreams.
Yeah. That's probably about it. It's
You ever
maybe
remember
longer than
when
that.
you were a kid, you'd have a dream, like say there was something you really wanted, and you dreamt in your dream that you got it, and when you woke up in the morning, you started trying to look for it, and you realized it. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That was a dream.
I remember those
piss
dreams.
me off.
Man, that was so bad.
What were you going to tell me about your new scientific discovery?
You're going to like this because it has absolutely zero to do with, I'm not doing it. I don't care how cool it is. We have some friends of ours that are scuba divers, and I know there's plenty of the people listening are scuba divers, so they may really enjoy this. But this comes from higherperspective.com. And there's actually a new scientific breakthrough that they believe that will allow humans to breathe underwater without oxygen tanks.
Really?
Yes. Now, this is pretty cool. It says, this sounds exactly like something out of Star Wars. It says, but we may soon be able to breathe underwater without having to carry a massive oxygen tank on your back, and all we need is a few drops of newly discovered material.
What?
Yeah, so I cut out this clip. Listen to this clip right quick.
Okay.
Amazing new oxygen catch and storage material could mean the end of oxygen tanks. It sounds like something out of a science fiction film, but the day may come when oxygen can be obtained by just a few grains of a newly developed material. Scientists in Denmark announced they have developed a substance that absorbs, stores, and releases huge amounts of oxygen. The substance is so effective that just a few grains stores enough oxygen for a single human breath, while a bucketful could capture an entire room of O2. With the new material, there are hopes that those requiring medical oxygen might soon be freed from carrying bulky tanks, while scuba divers may also be able to use the material to absorb oxygen from water, allowing them to stay submerged for significantly longer. The substance was developed by tinkering with the molecular structure of cobalt, a chemical element that when found in meteoric iron resembles a silver-gray metal. Scientists are hailing the breakthrough, but it could be many years before viable commercial uses of the new substance become available.
Now, see what I'm talking about?
Man, that is
Strange, isn't it?
It's crazy. What kind of like tinkering around with
Tinkering. I love that they use the word
cobalt.
Tinkering, yeah. It says the substance is extremely effective, and just a few drops are capable of storing enough oxygen, like they say in the thing, for a single human breath, or an entire bucket could do a whole room's worth of oxygen. Now, instantly, when I hear that, and I was reading all that, I thought of Is that how you, like, I'm going to run in, I'm going to throw a bucket of this in there in the room, and it's going to suck all the oxygen out of it, and everybody's in there is going to perish? You know how you think like it's like a video game? But what it's talking about is like medical units. You won't have to carry a lot of oxygen tanks, store a lot of oxygen tanks. This stuff can store.
You see the people with the oxygen tank, they pull one.
You won't need that anymore. You won't need to pull those along.
Is it just like a mask?
Well, they're talking about it's going to be in a mask, and this material grabs it out of the atmosphere.
That's insane.
So underwater, you'll be able to put this, just a mask on, and you're swimming, and it's pulling it out of the water. Basically, it's going to be like cobalt gills. So you're just diving around and swimming. So, and of course, I don't know anything, surprisingly enough, about scuba diving whatsoever. But I know, there's certain blood content, oxygen content in your blood.
There has to be a proper mixture based on
so I'm sure
depth
if you go diving deeper and the longer you stay down, it's probably not good because, the carbon dioxide builds up in your blood, in your bloodstream. And so I'm sure that, it's not going to be like you put this mask on and can swim underwater for 24 hours, just down there for hours and hours on end. You can't do that. But what this is going to be is, imagine those guys like shipwreck divers or something like that can put these masks on and dive down there. Well, now they're not just subject to a deep dive, may take 30 minutes, to get down and get acclimated and get settled in. You only have an hour's worth of oxygen or so working, while you're working, and then you have to make your way back up. Well, now you put the mask on, maybe you dive and you stay for 3 or 4 hours, who knows? It's going to be interesting, but not just for scuba diving. They're talking about for medical too.
Yeah. Now I wonder what the duration is that you could stay. Can you stay under for a week? Who knows? That's pretty cool.
It's the human body,
Well, and if they're working on this, that like the U.S. Navy SEALs and stuff like that, they're already working on these.
Well, they probably already used it.
Yeah. So you can stay down indefinitely, and you don't need. Imagine that. The cumbersome tanks must have been a pain.
Yeah.
To fight with.
Medically, though, is what I keep thinking about. Now you don't have to have all the room, nor is it as dangerous to store, compressed oxygen cylinders stacked over here in case of fire, all this. No. Now you just have these buckets of this material around, or however they're going to store it. Also, maybe they'll have. You think of someone that's got asthma and they have to have, their puffer or whatever, their inhaler and all that. Imagine if they could do some sort of screens with this stuff in like your nose or in your nostrils. And so kind of like a fake knee, they put this in and it helps to draw more oxygen in as you breathe. So it allows you, it's like a pure, almost like a screen in your nose.
Well, and I also think that if you're like in a chamber filled with pure oxygen, you actually heal faster. Mm-hmm. So like if you had a surgery or something like that, you could actually heal faster. So maybe you can make some kind of mask, sleep with it at night, and
good to go.
More oxygen in your bloodstream, which allows you to heal quicker. Yeah, that's pretty
down.
Cool. That's really cool.
I love it. I love when we find stuff like that. But folks, that's on higherperspective.com. It's really cool. I'm pumped because I keep thinking now that my mind went back to, all right, now they'll be able to explore more off the coasts. It'll be more readily available because of this. Anybody can go do it. You don't have to, like that. Now you don't have to spend all this money on this equipment. You get your one mask. You may have to refresh your powder, and then that's about it. You're ready to go
also,
again.
you could use it in space.
That's true.
Astronauts, when they're floating around working on stuff.
Is there any oxygen in space? That's the difference. It's pulling oxygen out of the atmosphere. I don't think there's any. It's devoid.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe not.
I don't know how it works. Moving on. Did you see this in Bulgaria? They found another vampire grave.
Oh, is it Vlad the Impaler now?
Well, no, remember a couple weeks ago, that was the news. They said that they'd found Vlad the Impaler's dungeon underground and stuff.
So now they've got another one?
This is an actual grave they found.
Now, how do they know this? Is because there's a guy in there staked?
Yeah, that's right.
For real?
That's right. This is
You're
from
kidding
me.
me.
No, I'm not. I'm going to tell you right now. It's from the Telegraph.
I'm a genius.
It's from the Telegraph. It says a vampire grave containing a skeleton with a stake driven through its chest has been unearthed by a man known as Bulgaria's Indiana Jones.
That's a mouthful.
It's pretty cool, right? The Bulgarian Indiana Jones.
Does he have the cool hat?
Yeah, it doesn't have a picture of him. The professor is known as Nikolai Ovcharov, and he's a crusading archaeologist who has dedicated his life to unearthing mysteries of ancient civilizations. He said that he made the discovery while excavating the ruins of Perperkion, an ancient Thracian city located in southern Bulgaria, close to the border with Greece. Now, this ancient city had about 5,000 inhabitants, and it was discovered about 20 years ago. Now, they believed that this site was the temple dedicated to Dionysus, which was a Greek god of wine and fertility. And among the finds at this site, which include a hilltop citadel, a fortress, and sanctuary, were a series of vampire graves. Right? Now, Professor Ovcharov announced that he had found a remarkably preserved medieval skeleton at the site in what he termed a vampire grave. He says, "We have no doubt that once again we're seeing an anti-vampire ritual being carried out." He explained that the metal stake, now they get that, it's metal.
It's a metal stake.
That's right. This is a metal stake, not like the Hollywood version.
It's not a real
The
vampire.
metal stake was driven through the corpse to stop a bad person from rising from the dead and terrorizing the living. Bad in quotation,
Yeah,
right?
air quotes bad. Yeah, I would think so. You don't do that to good folks.
Right.
I'm pretty sure if you looked at Mother Teresa, she don't have one driven through her.
So it's like a tent stake. They're just like nailing him to the ground so that he can't get out of
So
there.
he can't get up.
Right. Often they were applied to people who had died in unusual circumstances, such as suicide. Now, the skeleton was thought to be of a man between the ages of 40 and 50.
He looked like a man.
And he had a heavy piece of plowshare.
What?
Plowshare is an iron rod used in a plow, hammered through his chest. Also, his left leg below the knee had also been removed, but left beside the skeleton.
Wow. So not only did they hobbled him, they took a leg off where he couldn't run after anybody. So then they've also drove the stake through his chest. It's like the old joke with the zombies, and they just bury everybody with their shoelaces tied together.
Yeah.
So the zombies can never chase you. They're just scooting along like
Right. Well,
hobbled.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, you can't tell from the skeleton. I mean, maybe they killed this guy, cut his leg off, and then once he died, then they staked him down. I mean, it doesn't really get into any of that.
He made somebody mad. That's what he did. Did you
Obviously,
imagine
the town
that?
people did not like this person. Well, and this isn't not the only vampire they found. This is just the most recent one.
Yeah.
The plowshare that was driven through his chest weighs almost 2 pounds and is dug into the body, and it also broke his shoulder bone when they drove it in. It says you can clearly see the collarbone has literally popped out. So they drove this guy pretty hard.
This dude, he owed somebody some money.
That's right. They said that the grave dated to the first half of the 13th century, and he also discovered the remains of a woman and a young child laid out to create an image of the Virgin Mary and child. So these people like posing people when they die, apparently.
Yeah, right?
Right. Now, he said that was done. The mother and the child posed together to look like the Virgin Mary and the child. That was done in an attempt to ward off the plague, which has started ravaging towns just like this in medieval times. Now, apparently a couple of years ago, they found some more of these vampire bodies, not here, but in another town in Bulgaria. There was one called the Vampire Twins or something. It was 2 people they found staked. But I don't think that they had metal plowshares staked through them. I think they were actually wood that time. So it's crazy, though, right?
That is really strange.
I mean, it's bizarre.
That is very bizarre. Well, I've got a bizarre story for you.
Oh, yeah?
This comes from the roadtrippers.com website. Now, I had found this monkeying around with it, online, looking around there. And then a good friend of the show, Mr. Joe Badden, sent me a link to it, too, on Facebook. And we were talking about it a little bit. And we're going to talk about something else that Joe sent us.
Yes, Mr. Joe. I love Joe.
We're going to talk about what he sent us at the end of the show. But this is something I think you're going to enjoy. Remember, you and I were always talking about, we always bringing up the missing 411 and the creepiness that goes on in the Great Smokey Mountain National Park.
Yeah. Oh, I know where you're going. I remember you telling me about this. Go
They
ahead.
found the abandoned town inside the park.
Yeah, an abandoned town that
Yes.
they previously didn't know about.
Yeah, now listen to this. Now, there's a man that found it was named Jordan Lyles, and he discovered it when he explored in the park just last year, okay?
Okay.
Then he brought a camera and a crew and all this stuff back, and they documented the whole stuff. And from his website, this is what it says. It says about a mile up an unnamed gravel road inside Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the back way to an abandoned neighborhood and hotel, some of which was originally constructed more than 100 years ago. Now, the fully edited film is called Tennessee Wonderland. It's about 22 minutes long if you go to his website, and you can also look it up on YouTube. And it shows he explores the houses and the remains of what was once referred to as the Wonderland Club. And it's just one of those things to me, like I said, folks, this is a very creepy story. Now, like I said, the Road Tripper team actually come upon this whole thing last year. But it makes me think instantly, like I said, when we saw it, it's a regular abandoned town, folks. You can go and look it up. It's creepy buildings.
But it's in the middle of this national park?
It's a mile deep or better in the middle of this
and
national park.
No one's known about it.
Well, they knew about it when they built it, but it's just been walked away from. I mean, it's just, everybody just kind of was like, walked away from it and just left it there. This is some of the stuff that always goes back to making me think about the boy that went missing, and they claimed, in the missing 411 books, and he's talked about it, and a lot of this stuff has come out where they were talking about the wild people that lived up in these mountains, and that they were kind of like cavemen almost, and the park rangers knew, but they wouldn't go in there. Well, if this buildings have been there, first of all, who's to say that some people hadn't been living in these buildings from time to time? Maybe not continual habitation, but from time to time. But you're telling me in today's society, or so, they just now found this. People had totally forgotten it was up there. It's a building, and it's multiple houses. I mean, it's not a bad place at all. It's not like a dilapidated, rundown thing. Some of it is, but I mean, these houses are standing, look nice. It makes me wonder what else is up there that they don't know about. These stories, it seems, it's just like little breadcrumbs you start picking up. We always discuss this. You start picking up and you find it. So it makes me feel more along the lines that maybe there really is a group or a tribe of people that live up in those mountains. And, you know, this is what
creepy.
They do. It's creepy,
man.
When you see these pictures and you want to watch the video, like I said, folks, you can just go to YouTube. You can Google search Tennessee Wonderland. Yeah. You can search up on roadtrippers.com, and you can search up the whole thing about the abandoned town in the national park. But it's very creepy. It's unsettling almost, really and truly, because it, like I said, it just keeps me thinking. It gets me to thinking more and more and more, because these houses, you're like, could they have really, is this where they could have really been? Could they have been staying in there? If you get to digging around in there, is there bodies buried out behind this thing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, what we see is, it's just like you look at the cover of a book. It's real neat. It's interesting. It's a cute story. But is there more to it? That's what I want to know.
I'm sure there is.
Feels like there is. I mean, when you're talking about an unnamed road a mile up into the mountains or better.
Yeah.
And then there's this town, and nobody goes up in it.
It's
you
a
walk
little
up
town,
in it.
and it's just deserted.
Yeah.
Man,
it's
that is bizarre.
Strange.
Now, back to the missing 411 thing. Now, I know exactly what stories you're referring to that actually happened in the Great Smoky Mountains, but other places, too, where they talk about these devolved, like humans that are living. My only problem with that, now, I'm not saying that's not true. My thing is, I don't know what the thing is, what's happening to all these people. My only question is, whatever is taking these people, I mean, they're batting 1,000.
Yeah.
They do not mess up.
No.
They've never made a mess up.
It's never like somebody, it's the same thing as we talk about alien abduction. It's not like in the middle of an abduction, somebody fought them off and whooped one of them's ass, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's the same way as here. It's not like in the middle of an abduction, they didn't know that there were two people in the tent and not just one. And the other one shot one of the other ones and left them. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, there's thousands of cases, and there has not been one slip up, not one mistake yet.
Those books are so unsettling. They really are. I mean, out of all the stuff that you and I research and all the stuff that we study in the books, we got a mountain of books around us now, and the stuff we get, and the emails and everything, those are probably the most unsettling things that I've ever dealt with.
We're going to have him on. I've talked to David before, and he said he would come on, so
we'll
he's
get
just very
him
busy.
on. Yeah, he said we'll get him on and really dig into it some more. But yeah, it's very unsettling. But this is a neat thing that kind of, I don't know, it just kind of, to me, it added more validity to the stories that you heard coming out of that area.
That's crazy. Well, stay with us, folks. After the break, we're going to get into the Dogman, some true encounters. Stay with us. This is Expanded Perspectives. And we're back with Expanded Perspectives. I hope everybody enjoyed those news stories, and I hope you're ready to listen to some terrifying stories about Dogman.
I wished I could howl. I really wished I could throw a good scary howl on right about then.
Yeah, well, you need to practice, I guess.
I guess so, right? Creepy
now,
Dogman.
For those that don't know what a Dogman is, this is very similar to Sasquatch, but the people that have seen this thing swear to God that it's not a Sasquatch. It's just like it sounds. It's an upright canid. It's a walking dog, sometimes it's seen. Some people think it's a werewolf. Some people have even seen it where it's got like the body of man, but just the head of a dog. And there's different. Some people think it's a.
That's a wereman, Kyle, that the boys saw.
That's a wereman that the boys like to talk about.
Yeah.
Ancient American, Indian skinwalkers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's various stories. But regardless of what it is, they're almost always truly terrifying. I mean, lots of people see Sasquatch and they're not scared. They're like, oh, okay, it was a pretty cool encounter. Everybody I've ever read that's had a dogman encounter has been terrified. And it looked like the dogman wanted to do harm.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel like they just got out of there in just the nick of time. And maybe this has to do with some of the missing cases and missing 411 books. Maybe it's the dogman.
Maybe it is.
Maybe it truly is a werewolf. Maybe werewolves are real. I don't know. It's pretty scary. But I've got a quick story here of a dogman encounter. And this comes from a man in Alabama. Now, he doesn't want his name revealed or anything like that, so it doesn't have his actual name. But it goes like this. It says, in 1969, I was 9 years old, and I lived about half a mile down the road from an old church and cemetery. There were 2 other houses there. No one lived in. There were strange things happening quite often around where we lived back then. I remember one of the strange things that happened very well. My dad worked evenings from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m., just 3 miles down the road from our house. My mother, my sister, and I had just gone to bed when we started to hear a bumping sound on the back of the house. My sister and I ran from the bedroom we shared in the back of the house to the front of the house, where Mom and Dad's bedroom was. My sister and I were scared, so Mom let us sleep with her until Dad came home at 11 that night. Their bedroom had 2 windows, side by side, on the front of the house above the porch. You could see through the curtains at night due to the street light out front. We were lying there after not hearing any more noise when all of a sudden we heard something on the front porch. Mom saw it first and sat up in bed. That made my sister and I notice her staring out the window. When we turned our gaze from Mom to the window, we saw what looked like a very large dog on the front porch. It was walking to the front door upright on its back legs. When I reached the front door, I shook it violently. It was as tall as the door, and we could see it scratching at the screen door with its front paws. It remained there for what seemed like 15 minutes, but it was probably only a minute or 2. Mom didn't say a word for the first minute. She just shushed us until it turned and walked about 10 feet to the steps on its back legs. Just before it reached the steps and went down them, it went down on all 4 legs. Mom told us to go back to sleep, and we eventually did. I don't remember her telling my dad, but I do remember this well. It was 6 to 6.5 feet tall, while standing upright on its back legs. You could see all of its facial features, its ears, its snout, its head. Those features made it resemble a giant German shepherd. We hadn't seen anything that looked or acted like that thing in the area before that night. A lot of strange things happened there. I can't say it was a dogman, but it did walk on its back legs for several feet. Another time when I was young, my sister, who I shared the back bedroom with at the time, was at our grandma's house spending the night. I had gone to bed but wasn't able to sleep. Mom had my bedroom window open so air could get in. It was hot that night. The back of our house was high off the ground. Consequently, the bottom of my bedroom window was 8 feet off the ground. I had been lying there on my back when I rolled over onto my stomach toward the window. My foot went off the bed on the window side and wound up being only a few inches from the window. All of a sudden, something touched my foot. I don't remember if it grabbed my foot or what, but the screen ripped and the curtain fell, and I scrambled off the bed and out of my bedroom, into the living room where my mom was. She had heard all the commotion and saw that I was frightened. She asked me what was wrong, so I told her what happened. She went into my bedroom and saw the hole in the screen and that the curtain was down. She also saw how it was hanging halfway out of the window. She didn't know what to think, so she called my dad home from work. He came home to check it out and walked around the house before coming in. He said he hadn't seen anything. At first, he didn't believe Mom. It wasn't until he saw that the curtain was hanging out of the window that he believed her. He couldn't figure it out. We didn't have any problems with prowlers at first. they thought I had stuck my foot through the screen. I don't think that's what happened because I wasn't sleeping yet. I just couldn't have done that. Now, is that not crazy?
That's a little unsettling. Is always when something's reaching in for you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Man, that's just icing on the cake right there.
Right?
But,
No, thank you.
I like the description, and this is not the only time I've heard that. I've often heard it looks like a German Shepherd.
Yes.
Often heard that.
And I like how it's known to walk upright, but they also say sometimes it'll even drop down on all fours to move and then come back upright and push through stuff and walk. It's a very strange.
But 6 to 6.5 feet tall
It's a big
when it's
German
standing.
Shepherd.
I mean, that's big.
It's a big, big thing. I got one for you.
Okay.
This comes from Minnesota. Same thing. The guy did not want his name revealed. And it says, I'll start off by saying that I have never believed in any of these sort of creatures. But I saw something in early 2009 that really disturbed me and is making me change my mind. I was not under the influence of any drugs, and I have a better than average eyesight, and the lighting was nearing sunset, but I was still able to see clearly. So I'll get this underway and explain my story, and maybe someone can shed some light on this for me. I live in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, which is in the west central Minnesota, about an hour drive from Fargo, North Dakota. My mother-in-law lives out in the country, about 3 to 4 miles out of Fergus Falls, and I was staying there while my wife and her mother went shopping in town. They called me and asked if I wanted to go to a 7 p.m. movie, so I left the house at about 6:30, 6:45 to meet them at the theater. About 2 miles from their house, on a country road known as the Wendell Road, along the Mistinka River, I saw 3 white-tailed deer. 2 of the deer were rather small, probably just yearlings, and a larger doe who I'm assumed was their mother. Me being an avid hunter, lover of wildlife, and future wildlife biologist, stopped to look at the deer. I should also mention that I hunt in the area and have spent my whole life in the Ferguson Falls area. The deer were following a small creek bed, which is in fact the Mistinka River, so there were hardly any trees except for one. Maybe because I didn't see it there, because of the tree, but I just noticed something crouching behind the tree on my side of the road, looking at the deer, and to my belief, hunting them. It just sat there, looking at the deer, taking no notice of me, even though I was in my truck and no more than 40 yards away, with a clear view, with nothing obstructing my view of it. It had one, quote, hand on the tree that it was bracing itself with. What struck me as shocking was the fact that it seemed to be a 2-legged creature and not a 4-legged one. Its hands appeared to have opposite thumbs and were rather slender and long, very unlike a wolf. The creature looked as though it stood upright. It would be over 7 feet tall, with a protruding muzzle, broad shoulders, a slender waist, and thick muscular thighs. And being as there was snow on the ground, I couldn't see its feet. But he was deep, dark brown in color throughout the body. After several seconds of looking at the creature in shock, the deer ran off. Then something amazing happened. It looked right at me, as though blaming me for losing its meal. He just sat there looking at me and blinking, but not moving. And this scared me, so I hit the gas pedal and drove off. And it was very dark after the movie, so I didn't much feel like trudging through the 3.5 foot of snow, with the possibility of a monster lurking in the area who was currently looking for a meal that I scared off. So at about 10 a.m., I went back there and walked down to the tree. Under the tree, there was no snow, so there were no tracks that I could see. But leading up to the tree, there were 3 tracks leading in from my grandmother-in-law's field, which was hard black dirt. And if you know what a Minnesota field looks like in the late winter, early spring, you can't make anything out of the dirt. The tracks I did find were only about 6 or 7 inches in length, but were clearly canine prints, with the exception of 4-toe looking marks in the snow. It says, that's my story. If anyone has any information on this, let me know. The disturbing part of that is the fact, like he said, it turned instantly. Didn't pay any attention to him at first. Then it instantly turned and looked right at him.
That's terrifying.
Well, I don't even know. I mean, this whole Dogman thing is a very, very strange thing.
It is. Here, I've got another one. This is from Leon County, Florida. This person also wishes to be anonymous. says, I was traveling Highway 10 from the west coast to the south coast of Florida. I was with my 6 kids and pulling a trailer with all of my belongings and 3 dogs in it. I was in a big SUV, and it was around 2 a.m. The kids were all asleep, and my 13-year-old daughter was in the passenger seat to make sure I stayed awake. So after traveling Highway 10 for 3 days, I had decided since we'd reached Florida, we could cut through the state to save some more time. So we got off Highway 10 and went off-road, in hopes of getting gas and making up some time. It was along Route 27 through the Apalachicola National Forest. We came to the first little gas station, and it was closed. I was nervous because we needed gas, so we continued on. I told my daughter to keep an eye out for a deer crossing and the second lane. But we were only on a deserted highway because hitting a deer could kill us all and turn us over due to the trailer we were pulling. We were traveling around 45 miles per hour. I remember this part so clearly, like it was yesterday, but it was 3 years ago. We had our brights on because the road was dark and winding. A few houses were on that highway, but not many. As we came around another corner, in the headlights on the road, there was a lot of blood, fresh blood, and on the side of the road was this 6 or 7 foot tall creature. It was on its hind legs, hunched over a dead deer, eating it. It did not look up, not even when my headlights hit it. It was using its arms like a human, eating the deer. It had a very muscular body, pointed ears, and a long muzzle. If you ever saw a werewolf, this was it. It had a skinnier lower body, but used its arms and hands just like a human. If it looked up, I would have died. I looked over at my daughter. We were both seeing the same thing at the same time. Tears come to my eyes instantly, and at the same time we both said, werewolf. I sped up because I was scared it would run and jump on the trailer and kill my dogs. As we got about a mile away, my heart was beating so hard. My daughter and I were so freaked out. It was a werewolf. I have never been a believer in werewolves. I don't even watch werewolf movies or have any reason to make this up. And as a matter of fact, until today, I've only told a handful of people about this. There is a werewolf in Florida. Not sure of the exact town or road, but I wish I did know, so I could find out if we were the only ones to have seen this thing. I will live my life wondering. It was between Alabama to Florida, along the Panhandle. I will never forget this night ever. So isn't that going to be her and her daughter saw a werewolf? It's crazy. It's way more scary than Sasquatch to me.
That's what I can't even discuss it because it is. You always, everybody that you talk to and everything that we've researched, people we've dealt with, they always talk about the fact that Sasquatch, yeah, there is threatening, cases. There is times that, but for the most part, let's say for the most part, it seems, you don't want to paint it with a broad brush and say they're all nice, but let's say for the most part, all the stories that you hear are, they're gentle. People get the feeling that they're gentle. Yeah, we know of a few. We even discussed it, that we've heard some stories of stuff that's terrifying when you hear some Sasquatch encounters that people have had. They're kind of, a little bit evil also, some of the stories that you hear. This thing, I don't know that I ever get anybody really says that it's a gentle feeling that you get from being around it, or it's a gentle sense. No. And especially when we're fixing to play this next interview, it's nothing gentle about it. Nothing.
Yeah, tell the folks about these guys. It's Kris Huckins and Mike Smith.
Yeah, these fellas had this encounter with the Dogman in Missouri last October, which, oddly enough, probably pretty close to around this time.
Yeah, it was just a year ago.
Just a year ago, yeah. And, full moon, like you would think, the whole deal. And they're going to tell you about it. But, folks, it's uneasy. I mean, it is an unsettling thing. This is one of those ones where there actually was a gun involved. There actually was gunfire. I mean, this thing got shot. The whole deal, and it's a very interesting story. So I hope y'all really enjoy it. We had a great time talking. They're great guys, so stick around, and I hope y'all enjoy this.
All right, folks, we got quite a treat for you today. I'm going to let you speak with these two fellas that we're going to be speaking with, or we're going to be speaking with. You're not going to speak to them. Kris Huckins and Michael Smith, and they had an encounter. Now, this took place in Missouri. Is that correct?
Yes, mid-Missouri.
Mid-Missouri. And what year did this happen?
this last year.
Oh, wow, this last year, so 2013.
October 2013.
Oh, man. Well, go ahead and tell us, where did it all start? How did it happen?
Well, first off, we've been doing Sasquatch research for several years now.
Okay.
And so we spend a lot of time out in the woods, and we were at what at that time was our primary research area. And we went out like we normally do, build a campfire, we're hanging around, and I saw movement down the hill from us. It's a section of woods with a sort of a fire break cut through it.
Okay.
I saw movement down the hill through the fire break, and I wandered down the hill to investigate, and I was expecting to see Sasquatch, which we had seen at that point at regular intervals in that area. Can you hear me over the lawnmower?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, I wandered down the hill and was watching something move along the tree line to my right. And as I said, I was expecting Bigfoot, which we have seen in this area several times. And what I originally thought I saw was a juvenile Sasquatch.
Right.
Anyway, I look over in the tree line, and the trees sort of part, and I see a head stick out, somewhere between 6 and 7 foot off the ground. First thing I noticed was the color was different than the Bigfoot that we had seen, and then it dawned on me that this thing had a long snout and pointed ears, which very different. I stood there for a few seconds and, sort of tried to process it and realized that this was not someplace I wanted to be. I heard this thing sort of growl, and I turned around and did something that I've never done out in the woods in my life, and that's ran back to camp. Ran up the hill back to camp.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And tried to tell Kris what I'd seen, and he was pretty much like, no, I don't think so, that sort of thing. Then we heard movement in the trees again to the right, down the hill just a little bit, but not quite as far. And I'm going to let Kris tell you what he saw.
Okay.
All right, at this point, I'm going to interject here. That afternoon, I had just bought a brand new handgun, a .40 caliber handgun with some very potent rounds and 3 clips. I've never brought a weapon into the woods up to this point, but right before Mike and I went up to our hill, I met with a guy. I bought the weapon, and I just put it in the truck. When he came back, and he did come running back into camp, which is something he never does, like he said, I immediately got alarmed. Okay, well, we have reports of cougar. We've seen a cougar. I haven't seen any bear tracks up to this point. So I got him up, and he started to explain to me what he saw, and it just didn't make sense. Now, I've read about Dogman sightings, and I've always I didn't believe them. I just figured they were misidentified bear, misidentified dog, or misidentified Bigfoot. And at this point, I didn't. Mike is my partner, It's kind of hard to disbelieve him, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. So, okay, I jacked a clip into it. I loaded it, and I fired a shot into the air. At that point, as soon as I shot fired around into the air, we could hear movement coming around to our right, which was would be southwest, and moving to due south.
Now, what time of day was this? What time of day?
Around 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Full moon. Yeah, full moon, because that's generally when we try to go out.
Right.
Is Bigfooting is full moon. Just because we have better eyesight. But we immediately heard bipedal movement through the brush. And this is southern, it's at the northern tip of the Ozarks. And it's southern mid-Missouri. And there's a lot of leaf litter. The ground is fairly sloped, not so jagged as the Ozarks. And definitive bipedal movement. And I had my weapon, and I called out. I said, look, I was very loud about it. I have a weapon. I am armed. If you do not identify yourself, I am going to start firing.
Right.
And both Mike and I have long hair. I'm covered in tattoos. We don't look friendly. Nobody's going to sneak up on us if, you know, they're going to take one look at us. We're fully bearded. We have long hair. I'm tattooed. Nobody's going to come up on us, especially after saying, I'm armed.
Yeah.
This thing approached us, kept approaching us, and finally I saw it through the trees. It actually lifted one of its, I'm going to say paws, parted a branch, and we both had spotlights on it. I had a spotlight in one hand, Mike had a spotlight, and I had my firearm in the other. I said, identify yourself now or I'm going to fire this weapon. And it kept coming towards me, and I fired it. Saw the round hit. Heard the round hit. Heard the whoosh of air come out of this animal being, whatever you want to call it. Still trying to wrap our heads around it.
Right.
And it retreated back into the woods bipedally. We could hear it go down into the canyon. And I'm going to let Mike take it from here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't begin to describe how tilted I was mentally. I mean, I had vaguely heard of the idea of Dogman, but I had never really read anything about it, paid any attention. I just dismissed it as silly.
Right.
But, you know, the second time we saw this thing, when I first got back to camp, I mean, you know, it parted the ways, and Kris shot at it, and it went back in the woods.
Now, when it went back in the woods after he shot it, did it run? Did it take off, or did it just kind of walk off? Or
That's what I started to say. We could hear it circle around us more to our south, and a little bit behind us. Then it came out of the woods and parted the trees again and started to step out. And at that point, I had it well spotlighted, and Kris just fired. And I mean, you could hear the slight the bullet hit, you know. And after that, we heard it go back into the woods again. We could hear it walking. We could hear it fall and thrash around, and then we heard it get up and walk again. At that point, we weren't going to try to track the thing in the dark. You know, we just.
But yeah, we busted camp in record time that night.
Yeah, for real.
We've never cleared things up and gone back to the house so quickly before. But, you know, we did go back the next day and track it, and we could follow its path through the woods, found the spot where it fell and thrashed around, and then where it went off the hillside we were on down into a ravine. And if you go a little ways away from where we are, you get into a very heavy area of national forest with very, very heavy underbrush, and we just weren't going to follow in there. But the odd thing to us is we found no sign of blood, and there's no doubt. I mean, I had a very clear view when Kris shot with the spotlight. I mean, he hit it.
right.
and I would say he hit it dead in the chest. I'm not tooting my horn, but I'm fairly good for firearms, and for that matter, any kind of weapon. It's and he is. There's no doubt that I hit it right where I was aiming, and I aimed it right for the chest, mid-chest. I saw the meat part. I saw rib bone. I heard the slap, and it was a hydroshock round. So therefore it busted immediately.
Yeah.
We
And for
went
people
back
that
the next morning, it was about 10 o'clock the next morning. I said, we kind of looked at each other. We said, we got to go back up. We got to find out. We either got to find this wounded animal or we got to find the body for science. So we went back up, and we taped everything off. We measured everything off. We know the area like the back of our hand. That's our primary Bigfoot investigative area. And we've got, actually, to date, probably 40-plus more sightings eye-to-eye on Bigfoot. This thing was not a Bigfoot. It was, it scared us. And and generally, we're not scared of Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of known as habituators. They don't make us afraid. They make us actually kind of happy.
And I mean, we have both encountered mountain lion, bear,
yeah,
that sort of stuff in the woods. And yeah, certainly we're respectful of it, but we don't shake in our boots. This made me shake in my boots. And I got to tell you, I'm like 60 years old. I'm not a kid. So I spent a lot of years traipsing around out in the woods, and I have never ever encountered anything even remotely like this.
How far was it from when you first made the first contact, when you first saw it, when you come back to camp? Because I'm curious how far it tracked you to come back to where y'all were at.
When I first saw it, I was probably 40 feet away from it, probably
50 yards from camp.
Yeah, probably 50 yards from camp. The second time we saw it, it was probably 30, 40 feet away, and maybe 30 yards from camp. The last time we saw it, and when I know for sure, absolutely for sure, Kris hit it, it was 25 feet away from us.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And was it growling at you? I mean, what was it doing? Just staring you down?
Yeah, it growled at us right before. In fact, that's the reason I pulled the trigger, because I was identifying myself. I'm saying, I'm going to shoot this weapon, and it growled. And it was, no human could make that sound.
No,
none.
It was a very low growl, baring teeth, like an angry dog. Except its head was 7 foot off the ground.
Wow, so 6 or 7 foot tall, and it looked like a dog. Its whole body looked like a dog, or like the...
Yeah, the haunches, the legs, everything. The next day when we went back and tracked it, we could track it. When we shot it, we could hear it busting through the brush and the underbrush. We heard it fall down, and we actually found the exact place where it fell down through the leaf litter. And we also found where it come over a runoff ditch, and we found a very clear print. My hand. I'm not a very small man. I'm not a large man, but I'm not small. My hand did not cover the canine print that this thing made in the edge of this ditch.
And it was very obviously canine print.
Yeah, it had claws. It wasn't a cougar because it had claws showing. We're not novices. We're very experienced Bigfoot investigators.
Right.
We're not afraid of anything in the woods.
Until now.
We weren't until then.
Yeah, until now.
Yeah,
oof.
I mean, you two are the first people I've ever spoken to that's actually had a dog-man encounter.
Firsthand.
So, I've read about it in books, but I've never actually spoken to two people who have actually witnessed it. And what color was it?
It was black. Yeah. Black, and it had a white stripe on its chest.
Man.
Kind of a blood.
The thing that makes it uneasy for me, aside from the pure sight of the creature, was the fact that when it saw Michael, unlike every other creature in the woods, when it comes across a human, it decides to go the other direction, and not this one. This one decided to come on back and see what was going on, and not in such a very nice way.
It was
stalking us, no question about it. That's why we broke camp so fast. I mean, that's why I fired my weapon. That's why I even pulled out my weapon. It was stalking us.
Yeah.
If it was a bear, we could have made noise. If it was a cougar, it could have made noise. There were two of us. Ain't no cougar going to attack two men.
That's true.
Full-grown men. There's no man going to approach us looking the way we do.
That's true.
And when I first saw it and ran back to camp, I didn't run back quietly.
Yeah.
No, he busted ass. Back up to camp.
Well, and a lot of people too don't realize that the sound of a chest shot animal, when you hit an animal especially with a firearm, archery firearm that makes a certain sound. So you don't even have to visually see it from the sound it makes. And you're talking about a Hydra-Shock round, it's going to make a slap.
The gurgle, everything was there. I hit it right where I was aiming.
With no blood.
Yeah, that's the thing. There was
no blood. We went up the next day looking, and honestly, that night we broke camp so fucking quick and got off that hill, and we stayed up all night talking about it, or staring at each other, not wanting to talk about it, and back and forth like that. And then the next day we went up and we measured everything off. We looked at the underbrush, and it was a fairly warm autumn last year. This is mid-autumn. There was no DNA evidence, and that's what we went up for, and plus to find the body. That's what we went up for. There was nothing. No blood, no nothing. And we saw the bullet hit. We heard the bullet hit. We heard the animal whoosh, just like a deer or an elk would when you blow a hole in their chest.
If you've ever heard a chest shot from close range, it's just this sort of wet slap that it's distinct.
Yeah, very distinct.
But the thing that really threw me was just the appearance of this thing, because it was just it took me a very long time to even wrap my head around what I'd seen, because it was totally unexpected, totally unlike anything I've ever seen before.
We are big. Let me put this way: we are Bigfoot investigators, and we also kind of are intrigued about ghost hunting. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in lake monsters. They biologically cannot exist. To me, they biologically cannot exist. I don't believe in the metaphysical. I don't believe in, are there aliens out there? Probably. We'd be stupid not to believe in them. But, when it comes to like lake monsters and werewolves and vampires, you know what? That's fiction. That does not biologically make sense. This thing, to me, did not biologically make sense, and that's why it scared me so bad.
I could imagine.
And now I'm faced with the fact, well, I saw it. Now what do I believe in? I don't know. Bigfoot never scared me. I've never been scared. I have been hesitant. I have been in awe. And we've been Bigfoot investigators for years. And we've had to date so many face-on-face sightings of Bigfoot. This one threw us for a loop.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you guys had the presence of mind to actually warn a potential person, like, look, we're not playing around. I'm fixing to shoot. I don't know if I'd have that to even think of that. I think I would see something like that and just start firing.
You're right.
No, honestly, if you have a weapon on you, that's what you need to do.
No,
look,
absolutely.
I am identifying myself. You better identify yourself, or I am going to start shooting.
Well, I think there was probably a certain element in the back of back of our minds too that this has to be somebody playing a joke.
Yeah,
that's what you want to believe.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to believe that's what's going on.
Yeah, as compared to Sasquatch, very much different appearance.
Oh yeah,
not
very much different attitude. They've never stalked us. They played with us actually, as far as throwing things back and forth and taking toys and trading gifts and walking in front of us and in the moonlight. And, the group we have here is awesome. But you know what? Since that night, they have not been up on that hill.
But this thing was just so different. And I mean, one thing with Sasquatch, they very definitely have hair. They don't have a coat or a pelt, not fur. It's hair like we have.
Uh-huh.
This thing had a coat.
Yeah, it had a pelt. Yeah, it had a pelt, like a wolf or a coyote or a dog. It had a pelt. It didn't have hair.
Yeah, and longish, not overly long, but longish.
And you said it moved the brush out of the way with its. Did it look like it had a hand like a human, or did you say it was a paw?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, it was a paw, but a very large paw.
And
honestly, at that point, I was concentrating on his head.
Yeah, to hell with his hand.
Oh yeah.
Kind of elongated digits, I'd say.
Man, that is so creepy.
It's not a human hand.
Yeah, it definitely was not hominid.
Yeah, man, that is so creepy. I don't know what you guys saw. I don't know. Man.
Yeah, I you know what? We don't know either.
But the odd part was, after Kris shot it, when it took, you would expect most animals to fall down to all fours.
Uh-huh.
This didn't. It turned and bolted back into the woods on two legs.
Man.
Where we tracked it, we could see when it fell down. Immediately after it fell down, it was on all fours for about 20 yards, and it busted through a big briar patch, and which we tracked it through, going down the canyon, and then immediately went back up to bipedal. This, we're not novices. We spend a lot of time in the woods, and it's kind of actually unfortunate that we're more well known for our Dogman sighting than it is with our Bigfoot investigations. But it is what it is, and this thing we're coming to terms with it, and actually we're starting to get into it actually a little bit. I won't go in the woods without being armed anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm actually, I saw this. Some of our associates in the Bigfoot community are doubting us, and I kind of want to bring back proof.
Right.
Although I have to say, we have some associates who were
extremely supportive.
Extremely supportive. They weren't quite sure what they thought, but they've been extremely supportive. But for me, I mean, it took. Honestly, it was a very long time before Kris and I would even talk to each other about it. And I was very, very hesitant to talk about it at all. And a while back, sort of let myself be dragged into it. But, it's not an experience I want to have ever again. I'm not sure that I've got a great deal of curiosity about it at this point. One thing I will say, though, and that's part of our impetus for talking about it to a certain extent, is that we have discovered that there are other people who have had similar sightings, and I know how it was for us, thinking, we've seen this thing and everybody's thinking crazy.
Yeah.
And traumatic. I guess maybe part of my thinking is, if we speak up a little bit, then, maybe other people who have sort of similar encounters won't feel maybe quite so isolated.
On my part is the thing was hunting me. The thing had evil intent, or just maybe just be animalistic intent, but it was hunting me. Therefore, Bigfoot never hunted me. Bigfoot never stalked me. Bigfoot never threatened me. But this thing did, it scared me, so therefore, no holds barred. If I see it again, I'm going to do everything I can to kill it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it had in mind what I felt at that time. It had in mind nothing but primal intentions towards Mike and myself.
Right.
I'm going to kill it.
I can honestly say I don't think I've ever. I mean, I had this overwhelming sense that this thing was simply malicious. That it was, if it could, it was going to hurt us. And I've been standing at gunpoint and never had that kind of creepy feeling.
Go to the zoo and look at a polar bear. They look at you as food, nothing else. This is what that thing looked at us as, food.
Well, I really appreciate you guys sharing this story. It's an amazing story. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I had. Do you want to promote your Bigfoot research group or anything like that?
Actually, it's Pulaski Research Group. You can find us on Facebook. We have an open Facebook. You can join us at any time, and we don't post much, but what we do post is pretty scientific, relevant. We don't get involved in the Bigfoot drama. I'd also like to give a shout out to Vic Cundiff of Dogman Encounters.
Okay.
Who convinced us to talk about it to begin with, and we are on his premiere episode of his radio show, and also Linda Godfrey, who I contacted after the encounter, trying to find out more about this animal, beast, whatever it be, and she has also her new book that just came out this last month. Mike and I are in it as Tom and Joe?
Tom and Joe, yeah.
Yeah, Tom and Joe. And recently talked to her, so I'd like to give a plug to her and thank her for kind of opening our eyes to how actually widespread Dogman encounters are.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, at that point, neither of us was willing to be really public about it, so we asked her to use pseudonyms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of our own names.
Yes. Well, we're friends with Linda as well. She's on our show sometimes, and she's a fantastic person.
A couple months ago. Yeah. She is a great person. I love her to death, and she helped me personally through this encounter immensely. Because as a Bigfoot investigator, I already think I'm left field, and when I saw that and witnessed that, I thought I was crazy. Yeah. And she let me know that there are others, and it has been cited in this area, and on through the years, and she helps us through it a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, guys. It was great talking to you. Thanks again.
Thank you, folks, for listening here to Expanded Perspectives. Hope you enjoyed the Dogman interview there with Kris and Michael, because I certainly did. And it was fun because it's one of those things, it happens to us all the time. Me and Kyle were always like, we get done, we tell them we're done with the interview and all that, and they stay on after with us, and we stop recording and start doing the rest of our stuff, and then it keeps going on, and we keep talking, and we keep talking. It's one of those things. If we recorded everything that we discussed, everybody, this show would be 3 hours long. I mean, we go, sometimes it gets carried away from us. And this was one of those ones I could ask them, because they've done a bunch of Bigfoot studies. I mean, they've done a lot of stuff with Bigfoot research. It's kind of what they were doing up there, the whole deal. So they're great guys. It was a lot of fun. I really do appreciate them coming on and sharing their stories and all that.
Absolutely, man. I can't get enough of those stories, and I'm glad that they decided to come on and actually tell us. It was pretty cool.
I've got to say thank you again. You know, we brought him up at the beginning of the show. We've got his stuff on the website. But Joe Baden is an amazing artist and a good friend of the show's. And, folks, he has made us our logo. We've been working a brand new logo we've been working with. It's on our Twitter. It's fixed to be moved over. By the time all this will be, I'll have it all done. It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on everything. We're going to get it moved over to iTunes. I'll have a new logo on the whole thing. So, Joe, sir, thank you so much because it is amazing. It's just what I always wanted.
Right. It kind of encapsulates what our show's about, where the old logo really didn't do that.
Yeah. So, man, it's just great. So, Joe, thank you so much. And while we're doing that, I'm going to throw some shout-outs to some folks that we've gotten some really good reviews.
Yeah.
We always ask all the listeners, please, to rate and review the show. And if you don't want to leave a review, we completely understand. If you don't want to take the time to write it, it's no big deal. But the rating always helps. The more ratings that we get, it just really helps the show. We're trying to break 100. I think we're on about 83 right now, if I'm not mistaken. We've got 83. We're trying to break 100. And it's nothing going to happen if we break 100. Just Kyle and I want to break 100. You know, we're like, please. So we've had some people help here in the States and, you know, in other countries too. But Greg Buck, thank you so much for getting us a review and writing us a thing. Tallulah Big Cups wrote another great one as an elite member also. Relly 1130, thank you. Thank you so very much. Hairless Romantic, thank you.
Yes.
It was a great one. A Frisk, thank you so much. That one was awesome. Thank you for writing that. And Terry Lee 3000.
Yeah, Terry Lee, thank you very much.
For the ratings and the reviews. Thank you all so much for doing that. It really, like I said, it helps the show. It helps keep the show up at the top and get recognized, easier to find. And it also makes me and Kyle feel good, you know, whether or not. So, yeah, it's one of those
Thank you for all the new listeners that have signed up for Elite.
Oh, thank you all so much.
If you haven't signed up, don't forget we do another show every Thursday. Expanded Perspectives Elite. You can go to the website and sign up. It's easy. You'll see the tabs. You can follow the links. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, we do a bunch of stories, and it's basically an exact replica of this show. You just get more of it. And sometimes we do, now I say an exact replica. Every now and again we get a little crazy. We do some stuff that we don't normally do on this show.
Right.
But it's basically the whole same outline, the whole same everything. Folks, if you're listening to this, if you're close to Jefferson, Texas this weekend of October 18th, and you're not doing anything, come hang out with us at the Bigfoot Conference. It's going to be the original Texas Bigfoot Conference. It's going to be there in Jefferson, Texas, and it's going to be put on by the Texas Bigfoot Research Center. So if y'all want to come have some fun, you can search up the whole Texas Bigfoot Research Center. You can search up the Bigfoot Conference. You can get on there, come hang out. Nick Redfern speaking, Lyle Blackburn speaking, Ken Gerhard speaking. There's going to be a bunch of us talking. I think there's going to be barbecue at the end of it. They're going to be showing Willow Creek. They're going to have a deal there. So me and Kyle are going to load up. We're going to run down there. So we'll be there all weekend hanging out and seeing with everybody too.
Maybe we can run into some people that have some really cool stories.
Yeah,
we could use it on the show, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who's listening on Dark Matter Radio. Thank you for listening. I'd also like to really thank the people that work with us that make this show possible.
Yes.
And those I'm speaking about are the many publishers and stuff that work with us, like Manzanita over at Inner Traditions, you know, Kate and Simon from Warwick and Associates, Patrick from Anomalist Books, Kat with Llewellyn Books, Lindsay with Penguin Tarcher Books, and other shows that have helped us. Darren and Graham from the Gramerica Show,
those
Micah
guys,
Hanks, Caleb Hanks, and the guys over there at the Graham Report. Jim Harold helps us out. Mike Mays of the Texas Cryptid Hunters.
Yep.
And Open Minds, Ancient Origins, Cryptozoology News, all the cool websites that we use for articles and stuff. Everybody that we've ever spoken to has been more than helpful. Everybody hangs out. And that's what I want to take the time is to thank everybody for making this show possible. Because if it wasn't for all those people and it wasn't for you listeners, I don't know that we'd still be doing it.
You're 100% right. If it wasn't for the love that everybody's shown us, the help we've all got, Manny and Crystal at All Day Paranormal,
Absolutely.
Tyler, you know, I mean, it's great. Everything is great. The whole deal. What is it? Odd Reality Radio. That's his podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good friends of ours, like you said, with Micah and with Jim and Darren and Graham. We've got really good friends. We've got really good listeners. It's just a great place for all of us to get together, share a little story, share a little fun time, get through the day, you know, help you get through your work week, help you get through your drive, whatever. And I mean, it's just everybody's been overly kind to us. So, I mean, I can't say enough good things about everybody. The publishers that we work with, those women are great. The guys, I mean, they are so helpful to make sure, you know, we get everything we need, and then, you know, we in turn get them. And it's just it's a great group of people that we've worked with. So I couldn't agree more.
And I want to thank everybody for listening and tuning in. Me and Kim, when we started down this path, we didn't know it would take off like this, and it's really done good. So we really appreciate you fans. If you're new to the show, continue to listen, man. Write those reviews. Join us on Elite. You can join that. And, man, don't everybody work too hard this week. Let's have a good week.
Let's have a great week. That's right. Let's all just take a deep breath. It's cooler weather. We're having a good time. Halloween's right around the corner. Hey, you can't hate on chocolate. You can go and get some peanut butter and chocolate. Maybe get you an apple. Don't pull a filling out. Something like that with the caramel on it. You know, and I know it's getting cooler weather. I know a lot of people like pumpkin spice. I'm not a pumpkin spice kind of guy, but I know a lot of people are. So
you like pumpkin pie?
There's not many pies I don't like because I'm a heavy set guy. So yeah, that's exactly what I like. So folks, thank you so much for joining us, and everybody just have a good, safe week.
Yeah, and if you're an elitist, we will speak to you on Thursday. Take care.